Until very recently, people all over the world were convinced the Earth was hollow. People everywhere believed in a hollow Earth long after they had already agreed the Earth was round. The idea was that the surface world was nothing but an outer shell, and underneath that shell was a vast world with its own atmosphere, its own geological wonders, and its own civilization. This civilization was
Hey, it's your friendly neighborhood raccoon or whatever I am. I look like Ratchet, kind of, from Avengers. Anyway, I'm back. I'm gonna react to a video about mysterious places that science can't explain or tries to explain. And I'm not gonna talk too long with the intro. Without further ado,
of Agartha. Until very recently, people all over the world were convinced the Earth was hollow. People everywhere believed in a hollow Earth long after they had already agreed the Earth was round. The idea was that the surface world was nothing but an outer shell, and underneath that shell was a vast world with its own atmosphere, its own geological wonders, and its own civilization. This civilization was called Agartha, and it wasn't just a scientific theory, but an accepted fact. When the concept was proposed in the 17th century by scientist Edmund Halley, it caught on immediately. People began to believe the planet was made of multiple shells, with each one separated by its own individual atmosphere. Each shell supposedly worked independently of the other, and had its own unique people and life forms. The theory of the hollow Earth was expanded upon for centuries. As recently as World War II, the Nazis allegedly searched for the entrance to the hollow world, believing the civilization of Agartha possessed technology that could help them win the war. German U-boat navigator Karl Unger even claimed that he saw the entrance himself and could confirm the Earth was indeed hollow.
I know I'm not gonna get into any conspiracy theories. But if you remember, I mean, I'm not gonna go into specific conspiracy theories, but remember the movie, the last installment of Godzilla versus King Kong, and King Kong was on that crazy island he was on. Godzilla was looking for him. Somehow King Kong ended up in this hollow Earth, and it's supposed to be where he and Godzilla originated from, or something like that. It was really interesting, and then how they built like a tunnel and like a ship to explore the hollow Earth. It was really crazy, but I mean, it's a possibility. I don't think they mean it's exactly hollow, but maybe hollowed out sections, because there was a different world. They had their own source of light, vegetation, of course, giant creatures and weird creatures like prehistoric. But it's pretty interesting. If you haven't seen the last installment of Godzilla vs. King Kong, check it out. There was also another. I don't know if it's a recent show or cartoon or something, or it was a similar concept where they went inside the Earth and there was a different world. There's been so many of these, but that was the most recent one that's crossed my mind.
Sort of sadly, almost everything about Agartha these days is considered a conspiracy theory. Mainstream scientists say the Earth is a solid mass with a liquid molten core, while others believe that's totally false. Number 9. Mount Shasta. In Northern California, there is a snow-capped volcano named Mount Shasta. It's at the very edge of the Cascade Mountain Range, which comes down in waves of rocky peaks from British Columbia, Washington, and Oregon. But this volcano is unlike any of the mountains in the Pacific Northwest. It's filled with secrets that scientists can't, and perhaps will never, understand. The mountain draws in about 26,000 visitors each year. The tourists flood the small town at the foot of the mountain and spend heaps of cash at crystal shops and bookstores. It's kind of a hub for those looking to gain a deeper appreciation for the planet and its.
That makes me wonder. The stuff, okay, the stuff they buy at the shops, isn't it just? I want to say, is it made in China? I mean, I guess it's a souvenir from the town, but it was just weird. It's not like it came from the volcano itself, but they spend tons of money on something that, imagine if the shop orders it from China. So it was funny.
Energies. What really draws these tourists in is the rumor that hidden within the mountain volcano is a secret crystal city, one that the ancient Native Americans knew about before the Europeans came. There are also rumors that the volcano stands on one of the most powerful ley lines in the world, creating an energetic vortex that spiritualists can feed on. The mysterious crystal city is called Telos, and it was first described in 1864 by the zoologist Philip Sclater. He believed a continent called Lemuria sank beneath the Indian Ocean thousands of years ago. Then, after the continent sank, its 25,000 surviving souls fled to Mount Shasta. They then built a grand city in the heart of the mountain, like a group of dwarves, and allegedly they continue to live there in total isolation. None of this has ever been confirmed by modern scientists, but the fact is, people still believe there is a society in the mountain, even if nobody can prove it.
Now, I'm not disputing what he said. There are some things that do seem plausible, but this is just like, how did he deduce that? Way over in the Indian Ocean, and then they somehow made it to Northern California. There just seemed no rhyme or reason to his rationale. Like, at least with the hollow earth, there were some, plausible arguments for that. But this is just like, I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just something that seems like he concocted off the top of his head. But anyway.
Number 8. The Hanging Monastery. The Hanging Monastery of Mount Heng is a fascinating and peculiar place in China. The mountain itself is considered a powerful and sacred place, one of the 5 great mountains of China. The Hanging Monastery is a testimony to the ingenuity of the monks who lived here for centuries. It was built in 491 AD, constructed against a sheer wall of solid rock as if by a miracle, and it's still standing 1,500 years later. Because the monastery was built so long ago, no one knows exactly who started it. Legend has it a monk named Liao Ran began construction alone. Slowly but surely, more monks arrived on the mountain to help build, as they all wished to be isolated from the world in a place almost impossible to reach. The site was perfect for those who wanted to practice meditation. Because of its lofty height, noises from the ground couldn't be heard. In addition to the peace and quiet, its height ensured that the monastery was safe from floods. The mountain.
I'm always amazed by structures that are built into the mountain and built into rock. It's always amazing how humans actually construct something just cut into a mountain and just build a structure, a livable structure. Even the roads that they cut into the mountain. It's always amazing. And it was a genius idea, right? Protecting them from floods, kind of keeping them from, especially back then, maybe wild animals and things like that. But yeah, that's one feat of engineering as far as designing livable spaces inside mountains or rocky hills. I've always been kind of fascinated with.
Mountain's peaks worked as a shelter to protect the monks from rain, snow, and the harsh sun. This is one of the main reasons for the monastery's continual existence over the years. But even though this place looks like it was built using magic, experts say it wasn't. Most likely the monks used highly advanced engineering methods. They drilled holes into the rock, then slipped in wooden pillars. These wooden pillars acted as supports for the structure. However, there are myths that the pillars were installed later to give tourists a sense of safety, and that the monastery really is held against the wall as if by magic. Number 7. India's Giant Jars. Researchers in India recently came across 4 separate fields covered in gigantic stone jars. All 4 of these mysterious sites were found in the state of Assam, with a total of 65 sandstone jars spread between them. Archaeologists haven't been able to date these relics yet, but believe they were made prior to 401 BC. That's over 2,400 years ago. The discovery was made during a 2020 survey of the area. The research team went into a remote part of the jungle that had yet to be formally surveyed, a place where no people live, and where nobody had really gone before. It was as they searched through the jungle for anything interesting that they started finding random jars. The jars were found sticking up from the ground and completely overgrown with weeds and vines. Some of them are 10 feet tall and almost 7 feet wide. They also look very similar to the strange stone jars found in Laos and Indonesia.
That's pretty amazing. Just randomly searching the woods and you come up upon these giant jars. And when I first saw this, I thought they were maybe like 2 or 3 feet tall, and I was thinking it wasn't that interesting, especially if it was close to civilization. But now that it's out in the middle of nowhere, it seems pretty interesting, and curiosity makes me wonder what was there at the time. Was it actually the middle of nowhere, or was there another structure as well as the jars? And what were the jars for? Probably have to Google what those jars are made for if that information is out there.
Asia. The only thing is that these sites in India are thousands of miles away from the ones in Southeast Asia. To make things even more bizarre, the team has already discovered decayed human remains inside several of the giant jars.
Okay, I guess we can deduce what that's for. The plot thins for me. Let me just skate past this a little bit.
So their presence in the jungle is still a mystery. And now for number 6, but first want to give a quick shout out.
Let's skate past this a little bit.
As they descended into the darkness of the subterranean pit, they quickly started to see paintings all over the walls. Even though these cavers weren't archaeologists, they knew immediately they had stumbled upon something ancient and great. We now know that the paintings in this cave are among the earliest examples of human art in Europe. The cave is 1,600 feet long, connected through passageways and large vaulted chambers.
Seems like every cave system in the world has some type of painting and art in it. It makes you wonder. You know, that's even in some biblical accounts, right? People hiding in caves, people hiding whole communities. I even read a story about, I think it was King David. Yeah, he was running and hiding in a cave, and then they estimated 600 people came with him later on in the cave. So it was a huge cave system, I guess, for them to kind of temporarily reside as they were kind of rebuilding and strategizing. But it's interesting how humans kind of live in caves, whether it's long term or temporarily, and just to have cave art. And then now we go in them and we're like, oh, we don't think anything's here, and then we see these cave art designs all over the cave system.
And it's filled with some of the first pieces of artwork ever created by human beings. Sure, there are older pieces of artwork in Spain from 65,000 years ago, but those were created by Neanderthals. After the Neanderthals were wiped out 40,000 years ago, Homo sapiens were the only ones left to draw on cave walls. Our earliest attempts at art can be found right here in the Tito Bustillo cave, with the paintings dating back 36,000 years. But there's still a lot that scientists don't understand about the cave and its paintings. The artwork depicts mostly animals, large numbers of deer and reindeer and horses, but there are also strange and unidentified animals, things nobody has ever been able to make sense of. There are mysterious geometric lines and patterns too, which are also kind of strange. We don't know if these early humans saw animals that no longer exist, or if they were making up creatures from their own imaginations. Number 5. Crystal River. Florida's Crystal River Archaeological State Park is a place of great history and deep mysteries. It's considered one of the longest continually occupied places in Florida, and served as a ceremonial center for Native Americans for nearly 2,000 years. The people who lived here were coastal dwellers. They settled the Crystal River about 10,000 years ago and lived in small bands of nomadic hunters and gatherers. Historians call these people Paleo-Indians. They traveled from place to place forever foraging and hunting. Typically, these groups were made of extended family members, brought together in a clan, and related almost entirely by blood. But then something strange happened. 8,000 years ago, the sea began to rise and the weather began to change. Mammoths and other Ice Age beasts started going extinct. At the same time, humans were rapidly undergoing technological advancements. Along the Crystal River, there was a civilization of fisherfolk starting 2,500 years ago. They lived there all year, but scientists aren't entirely
This guy looks like a bit like Tom Brady in a lab coat. Like, it also looks like he's bored.
sure what it was they were doing. Today, the site is covered in huge earthen mounds. These mounds were where the inhabitants conducted cultural festivals, ritual ceremonies, and where they buried their dead. There are roughly 1,500 skeletons scattered throughout the archaeological site. But here's the craziest part. Evidence has shown that people made pilgrimage to the Crystal River complex from all over America. Native Americans traveled immense distances specifically to bury their dead under these earthen mounds. It's been estimated that about 7,500 visitors arrived at the complex each year. Then, around the year 1500, everyone packed up and left, but scientists don't know why. Number 4.
That's pretty interesting. How they traveled across country to have their loved ones to be laid to rest in the same place, like different. Imagine, I don't know if it's the same tribe or different tribes or clans or whatever you want to call them. Basically, coming across country and from distant lands to lay their family and friends to rest. I wonder what was special about that place, and what was it about other places they couldn't lay their loved ones to rest. I'm not sure. But I'm going to stop here. I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. I see my 2 returning visitors are back. I appreciate it. We're in here like the 300. And again, thanks for your time. And please, please, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.